One of the most active and important organizations in Hawaii is the Hawaii Red Cross. And I am very lucky today to have some of the most remarkable people here who dedicate their lives to helping others. They're from the Red Cross, and I want to welcome them. This is News Behind the News. Aloha. Thank you for coming today. Thank you. Yeah, so you are both, first of all, Coralie, you are the head of the Red Cross in Hawaii, and I know you're always on the news. Your face is very well known for whenever there's a problem or whenever there's trouble, you're always there to help.
Yes, I am.
And people in the Red Cross are very appreciated in this town.
Well, thank you. And I'm an attorney, and I just fell in love with the Red Cross. I was a trial attorney with the Department of Justice, and then I came into private practice and all that, and I ran the Bar Association, and I just fell in love with the mission. And so I'm here 9 years later.
Wow. And you know, I work in the news media, and every week, several times a week sometimes, we have a press release from the Red Cross saying that you're responding to a fire or some kind of incident.
Yes.
And that doesn't even count the natural disasters. I guess it's every 4 days or so.
It's every 4 days in Hawaii, and nationwide we respond to 70,000 disasters every year, which is one every 8 minutes, and Hurricane Katrina and Superstorm Sandy counts as one. So that's a lot.
Wow. And you know, you basically, people think, well, you might get government support or you're part of the government agencies, but you're not.
That's the biggest misconception, because we're chartered by Congress to respond to every disaster that happens in the United States. And we work side by side, the police, the fire, the military, civil defense, and then there's the Red Cross. People think that we're part of the government, but we're entirely funded by donations from wonderful people, especially in Hawaii, that help us do our mission.
So not only do you are supported purely by donations from the public, and it's really important to give to the Red Cross, of course, but also you actually go out and recruit volunteers, or volunteers come to work for you and you help train them. Is that right?
Yes, we do. We could not do without our volunteers. They're the ones that sleep with phones underneath the pillow statewide to respond to every disaster within 2 hours. And it could be in the middle of the night. In fact, usually fires are in the middle of the night.
Yes, definitely, especially during the holiday season with Christmas lights and things like that, right?
Yes, yes, and cooking.
Right. Oh, cooking. I know. I think I've set my fire alarm off a few times, but we won't have to talk about that. I didn't need the Red Cross. That's the good thing.
That's good.
So tell me about Tell me about how you got involved with the Red Cross.
Well, I think I really started getting involved with the Red Cross when I was a Girl Scout, and I was working on my first aid badge. And all along, I've always been CPR and first aid certified. And then I was a military wife for 20 years, and so being on different military bases, I saw the Red Cross. And then when I retired a couple years ago, I decided I really want to get involved and be a volunteer with the Red Cross, and it's been just a really great experience.
So how do you two work together, and how many people do you have working at the Red Cross right now?
You know, we're very understaffed. We have 30 full-time staff for 8 offices. And we're 24/7, 365 days a year, not only for disasters, but we also do emergency communication between deployed military service members and their families. So if a soldier from Hawaii is in Afghanistan and his father is dying, we'll get word to their command so that he can come and say his last goodbyes. And we actually have University of Hawaii School of Social Work students helping to do the casework, because when a family is in crisis like that, they need to be cared for.
Wow, so you are really busy. There's so many things that you do in the community. Let's go over some of those so people really understand what the Red Cross is. Besides responding to help people when they have lost their home, whether it's to flood or some kind of disaster fire, right? What is it that you do for them when you arrive on scene?
You want to answer that one?
Well, no, you go right
Okay. Well, actually, there's a couple of different components. So statewide, we have hotline operators who are volunteers that work 12-hour shifts, and these are volunteers, and they get the call from the first responder. So the civil defense or the fire department or whatever will call and deploy them, or actually tell us that something's happening. And then the hotline operator will then deploy another volunteer team called Disaster Action Teams. We call them DAT teams. There's a DAT captain and all that. They're on 12-hour shifts, and this is the whole state. And they respond to any disaster within 2 hours. And so we need to constantly train them, and they're all on call. And then Barbara goes out to bigger disasters. She's been deployed to Sandy.
Yes. Wow. So let's talk about that. Okay. So a disaster happens. Unfortunately, we've had terrible hurricanes hit the mainland. We've been pretty lucky in Hawaii recently. But Hurricane Sandy just was terrible disaster on the East Coast, and you were there.
Yes, it was really exciting. You know, the Red Cross prepares us a few days, you know, as the storm's arriving. They put emails out and let us know, hey, be on standby because you're going to have to go within 24 hours. And then that's basically what happened. Is I was approached if I wanted to deploy. I had never deployed before. I'd gone through a lot of training with the Red Cross, and I'm now an instructor with the Red Cross, and I felt like I really wanted to get experience in sheltering. And so that's what I went to Sandy to primarily do. And to just, you know, fulfill the mission of the Red Cross was.
So where were you based when you went to?
Well, we were based, there were 9 of us that flew to Hawaii together, and we wanted to stay together as a team. So we called ourselves Team 808. And we went to a high school, Farmingdale High School on Long Island. And we were in a girls' gymnasium, and we had a maximum of about 38 people, which is one of the smaller shelters. They did have a larger shelter in Nassau Community College that housed, I think at one time, 700 or 800 people. So, you know, it's 2 gymnasiums. So.
And what is it that you saw when you went there? What was it that struck you about going to a place that was just hit by a hurricane?
Well, just the people and how they were, you know, had all their possessions that they, you know, either in their car, or some of them didn't have cars, or their cars were destroyed, and they had boxes and things that they were wheeling in there. But while they were upset about what happened and not sure, you know, how long they're going to be without, you know, being in their home, just the spirit of knowing that FEMA, the Red Cross, and all the different agencies were going to help them.
So how many people went on the trip?
43 people from Hawaii went, and it's not only to help those poor people, but they bring back all of this experience, because it's kind of like being in a war zone. You can do all the exercises you want, but until you've been there, you really don't know. I mean, I went to Katrina, and it changed my life. And so these people come back, and they're the leaders, so not if, but when something happens in Hawaii. So we made sure that we deployed not only from Oahu, but even from Molokai, Maui, Kauai, every island went. And also we did that for Isaac too, so that when they come back, we're stronger in Hawaii to help our people.
So 43 people go to the same location, or they're all different?
No, they're deployed all different times and places, and even what they do. I think Barbara's husband is there right now, driving trucks and doing logistics, where she did sheltering. But there's something for everyone. I mean, there's people that all they do is do IT or public affairs, or there's so many different things to do.
So when you went to Katrina, what was it that struck you about going to a place like that? How did it change your life?
Oh, you just are so grateful for people that are helping. And I remember getting put on Fox News, and they said, "Why are you here from Hawaii?" Right? It's the 808. And I said, "Well, you know what? People came when Iniki struck. And so we're all one Red Cross, and we have to help each other, because every one of us is going to be victims. And it really is not if, but when something's going to happen in Hawaii. You know, we've had 5 really scary, almost disasters in the past 5 years. There was Hurricane Flossie, Hurricane Felicia, and the last 3 tsunami scares. And actually the one from Japan did $30 million of damage. And people didn't realize it because it was in Molokai and Kona and Maui. But it's going to happen, and it's very scary.
So we're lucky that we have the Red Cross, not only here, but people that will be willing to come and help us as well, right? And I know you did really get involved with helping Japan.
Yes, we did.
The concert here and fundraising.
We were able to raise $5 million, the Red Cross, to send to the people of Japan.
That's great. So what are some of the things that people might not know about the Red Cross? I know you have a list of 10 things, and we've talked about some of them, but what are some of the other things? I know you said the main thing is that you aren't a government agency, you rely only on donations, so donations from people in Hawaii are really important. Do donations from Hawaii stay in Hawaii, or do they go to the whole country, or how does that work?
We have to fund our own here.
Yeah.
So, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And you know, we don't get any money from the state or federal government, and yet we're required to respond. And so that's the biggest misconception, is that, you know, of course, in fact, it would be news, I think, if the Red Cross wasn't there.
Yes.
People kind of take us for granted. And I'm kind of a really good guinea pig, because I was practicing law and all that. I didn't know that much about the Red Cross. So another thing we do is one of our missions is to save lives. And so we do first aid and CPR, but did you know we did pet first aid and nurse aid training and babysitting and all kinds of things like that. We also run the entire volunteer program at Tripler Army Medical Center. Every one of the hundreds of volunteers, whether they're pharmacists, pediatricians, just helping in the library, they're all Red Cross volunteers. And we even have four-legged volunteers. You know, you were talking about Tucker from Kapiolani?
Yes.
We have 40 human-animal bond program therapy dogs that visit the soldiers in bed.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing. And they're all here? All the dogs are here?
Yes, they are.
Wow.
They all go to Tripler, and then they also go to Kapiolani and other places.
So I think we're going to do another show and have the dogs on too. Do you have anything, other animals besides dogs, or all dogs?
You know, we used to have a rabbit and a cat, but I think a couple of them passed away, so they said, don't mention them.
That's okay. We'll remember them in spirit
Yes.
because they helped out while they're here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, in terms of what you do for the military, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that. You're talking about the dogs that come to visit, the soldiers, and you're connecting them with their family overseas. And how important is that for the soldiers? What kind of feedback are you getting from them?
It's just really, people rely on the Red Cross for that because we're neutral. And in these days and ages, people might say, well, you can just call them, you know, on the phone or do the internet. But we're a neutral organization that's going to do their homework. How sick is mom? Where's their death certificate? How are you going to get home? And so the military relies on us to do that. And it's 24/7, 365 days a year. And it's donated dollars that help us do that. And so it's also casework, you know, and even with disasters, it's not only food, clothing, and shelter, but it's mental health counseling. So we have nurses, we have volunteer disaster, or actually mental health workers that are licensed. And they're the ones that are there within 2 hours of the scene of any disaster. And it's just priceless. You know, who else is going to do that but the Red Cross that is at the scene of a fire? And we just actually this week had a fatality fire. Well, people need counseling for that.
Yeah.
And who's going to be there at 2 o'clock in the morning? It's the Red Cross.
Now, what kind of volunteers do you need? And do you have to be a nurse, or can you be other things? Can you have other talents that you can bring to volunteer? What do you require?
We require commitment and dedication and flexibility. But you know, we need office workers. We need people that help with fundraising and licking envelopes and helping do accounting and everything at our office. And then in deploying, you don't have to have really special skills. We'll train you. At Katrina, it was so funny because there were some people that all they did for the 3 weeks that they were there was drive volunteers back and forth from the airport, which sounds mundane, but we sure needed it. We had 200,000 volunteers go to Katrina.
Wow.
So that was just an important role. Every little thing was necessary for the operation.
Now, what lessons do you learn when you go there and you bring it back here? You're talking about people in your Red Cross volunteer group that get trained like in a war zone when they go overseas to disasters. What do you think is the most important thing that you learn there, or some of the important things that you've seen there that you've brought back here?
Well, I'll let Barbara respond for her disaster, but just being able to think on your feet and being flexible. Because you know, you think you're gonna go there for shelter. Well, no, maybe not. And you think you're gonna go to this place, and you're someplace else. So it's almost like actually a treasure hunt, they said. So you get your ticket, and you don't even know where you're gonna go. You arrive there, you go on the phone, and there's a recorded message. You go here, okay, and then you go there, and it might change. And so it makes you. It's a real life experience where you just do what is needed.
What about you? What was it?
Yes,
for
definitely
experience
thinking
for you?
on your feet. And you know, we opened, ran, and then closed a shelter within 6 days. And just being able to, okay, this wasn't in the book. What are we going to do? You know, thinking on your feet, and just dealing with little situations that come up, personality things with the clients and amongst the volunteers. And being organized, being patient, like you said, when you're waiting for your initial assignment, or like then we were waiting for our second assignment, and just being patient and realizing that the Red Cross is trying to organize thousands and thousands of volunteers. So they're not going to be, you know, responding to you within a couple hours. It may be all day you're waiting around. But let's see what else.
The other thing is the emotions, you know, and actually when you get released from your deployment, they check you out. They make sure that you're okay, because some of the things you see and do and experience are very emotional.
I can imagine, because first of all, there's just all this energy around with people that are so upset and hurting so much, and then you're the shoulder to cry on, and the person to hug them along with helping them out, right?
Right. So you have to be strong, and it's hard not to break down. You know, you have to be the strong one and just make sure that they know that you care.
So not only are you a volunteer in your family, but your husband is too, huh?
Yes.
Did you sucker him into that, or did he sucker you into
actually,
it?
For about 5 or 6 years, he's been teaching CPR and first aid. And then when I retired and wanted to get more involved in Red Cross, we both became more in the logistics field. So we'd go into the tunnel. There's an inventory tunnel in Diamond Head, and we were doing inventory and doing this and that. And then we started taking more and more classes. And I've been volunteering in the office once a week in addition to that. And so he's now an IRV driver, and he's doing warehousing, and there's just such a variety of different things that you can volunteer for. And Volunteer Connection, I think, is something, I think it was in mid-October, they started a new online Volunteer Connection. And it's really great. I've been helping monitor that from the in the office. People they do their self-register application. They do a little orientation. They do a background check. They list. There's a list of all the different kinds of volunteer opportunities and like a little job description, and which gives them an idea of what they want to do. And then they're referred to. Like the Oahu representative or the Maui representative, and they start scheduling classes. And the Red Cross, like in January, will have another series of what they call boot camp. That's right, in it. Boot camp classes where these new volunteers will go through the 4 different classes like sheltering, orientation, mass care, and things like that. And then they will, of course, have to be CPR and first aid certified, and then they're ready to deploy.
So your husband is, and where is he right now? He's helping
He's in New Jersey. I think it's called Jersey Port or Port, I'm not sure, something like that. There's a warehouse, but as Coralie mentioned, he's doing a lot of, everybody's important, and those drivers that are shuttling the vehicles or shuttling the people, and that's what he's been doing quite a bit the last week or so.
So when you were there at Hurricane Sandy, some pretty neat things happened in your shelter. Is that right? We have some pictures that we can show?
Oh, yeah, let's
tell the story about the pictures, and we can show some of the pictures.
The community was great. They really pitched in, and this, one night, this gentleman and his, I think it was his wife, they stopped by to do some entertainment for us. And so that's us with a group. And by the way, the lady in the black, his wife, is from IAEA. So that was really fun. So he was just going all around the gymnasium singing, and people were dancing, and there's some other pictures there. We're doing a Congo line. Too. Oh, Congo line. Congo line here. And then the next one is she was teaching us and the clients the hukilau. So that was really fun. I mean, it's so special to have someone from Hawaii.
It's good to get, well, first of all, how funny is that you meet somebody from Hawaii, right?
Right.
And then also you had the chance to get everybody's mind off everything, right?
Yes.
I know. It's a small world because I was actually in Scotland, and the person behind me was from Hawaii.
Wow.
In a stadium filled with about several thousand people. So you never know who you're going to run into overseas, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
Especially with the Red Cross, with people coming from all around the world.
That is true.
So how long is your husband going to be there? And
he'll be coming back next Thursday. He will have been there a little over 2 weeks, and I was there a little over 2 weeks.
So is that your average deployment?
2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks, and it's a full thing. I mean, like 2 weeks is 14 days, and it's 14-hour days too. And sometimes you try to either eat or sleep. Okay, I slept and ate peanuts for dinner sometimes, because it's really exhausting. Not only the work, but emotionally. Having to remain strong for people, it's very tiring. And a lot of people come back really exhausted, but I know that they do it again all over again.
Oh, definitely. Even sleeping on a cot with 200 other people for a couple nights.
With snoring.
With snoring and everything else going on. And then most of the 2 weeks I was gone, I was sleeping on a cot, and it snowed during that time, so it was pretty cold, but yeah, I'll do it again. Not that I want a disaster to happen, but
but you had a snow in your disaster, and you had flooding.
And heat. It's mostly hurricanes and heat, so it was very interesting. A lot of the Hawaii volunteers had to go to Goodwill or some other store to get some mittens and things that they normally wouldn't use. So this was quite a different experience from going to American Samoa or to Louisiana.
So we actually have shelters open here too. So
oh, yes.
You've opened them up overseas, but when we have things like the hurricanes coming or the tsunamis coming or the earthquakes,
yes,
you open shelters as well.
Yes,
Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a local, so we're on call 24/7, 365 days a year for whatever happens. I mean, things like the Waikele explosion or the Maui police stand-up, you wouldn't think that we'd be there, but it's the mental health and all of that too. So, and then the fires every 4 days, but when there's a big event, and actually we've just finished hurricane season, but we're now in flooding season, and that's until like April or something. So we never really, we're really never off the hook. And we've had flooding almost every spring. I remember that 40 days of rain and all the Kaloko Dam and all that.
Very well, yes.
Yes, well, we've been having that, and I think it's because of the weather. You know, there's drought, and then so everything dries out, and then there's rain, and then the fires after that because all the weeds grow. So it's kind of a vicious cycle.
Yes, definitely. And so maybe you can give some examples of some of the bigger things you've done here in Hawaii. You mentioned Kaloko Dam. How did you work with the victims there or the explosion in Waikele?
Yes, with the Kaloko Dam, it was really sad because the mother of the pregnant bride-to-be called us at the office, and she couldn't, you know, she wasn't going to go to the wedding, and now she had to think about what's happened to my daughter. And so with the help of Hawaiian Airlines and the Kauai Visitors Bureau, we were able to meet her at the airport, Honolulu International Airport, with a trained disaster mental health worker, and that's a volunteer, who took her from Honolulu Airport to Kauai Airport to where she ultimately had to grieve. And so it was the mental health counseling a lot because there were fatalities.
Right, she expected her daughter to get married that day and have a grandchild soon, and then not have anything like that, right?
You know, there's another aspect that that's the day-to-day disasters, and we have about 600 volunteers throughout the state. And that's barely enough because it's 12-hour shifts, right? 365 days a year, 24 hours. But we also have a program called Ready When the Time Comes. And so if there's any corporations out there or companies that are willing to let their employees volunteer for us, it's only a 4-hour commitment of training. And in that time, they learn how to do sheltering, and usually it's 20 hours of training, so this is a shortened version. They get their Red Cross badge, they get background check, and they're ready to be our surge capacity in the case of a major local disaster. So we're not going to deploy them to Louisiana or New York, but when something happens here, they'll be ready to go. So during the last tsunami scare, we actually called about 6 or 7 companies to stand by because had there been a tsunami and we had to open prolonged shelters, we would have needed them because it's 12-hour shifts and it's a lot of shelters. So for Hurricane Felicia, it was Category 1 on Saturday. On Monday, we had to be able to open 47 shelters throughout the state and actually opened about 8 in Maui. You know how many 12-hour shifts that is? We really need help. So if anybody wants to volunteer, it's called Ready When the Time Comes, and you do it as a company, and you get trained together, and that would really help us.
So let's talk about some of the other things you need. You need money, you
yes.
need volunteers.
Yes.
And is there a certain kind of volunteer besides just the general population that you're looking for right now? What do you really need right now from people out there? Yeah,
well, you know, there's a lot of retired people or people that are willing to be able to be really flexible because, you know, disasters happen anytime.
Yeah.
And so those are the people that kind of most of the time they're the ones that are disaster volunteers. But we need help fundraising and working, going into the schools, doing, we call them CDEs, they're disaster education in the schools and to Rotary clubs and just teaching people how to prepare. So we've been predominantly occupied with responding because we have such a small staff, but we need to do more outreach and teach the community how to be resilient and to be prepared because people think they're going to walk into a shelter and there's going to be cots and blankets and food. Well, you know, in New Orleans, all that got wiped out because the levees broke. How do you know what's going to happen and where your food supply is going to be? So everyone needs to have all of their food and their blankets and pillows when they come to a shelter. And I don't think a lot of people have that. And even their pets, they need to be in crates. They need to have water and, food and leashes and collars and things. People really need to learn. And if they want to do that, they can go to our website at hawaiiredcross.org and learn all about how to prepare.
You know, we could actually do a whole show just on that.
Yes,
you know,
could.
just on preparing. We could, because that would probably be a good thing for people to know more about. Because, you know, normally when disasters are gonna happen here and we
Yes.
hear they're coming, everybody runs to the grocery
Yes.
store, right?
Yes.
They get their water, their rice, their toilet
Yep.
paper, right? They wipe out the store with batteries, flashlights. And then they go to the gas line and they wait in the gas line and they go to the bank machine.
Right.
And by that time, the line's very, very long and you could wait in a store for an hour or more and get nothing, right?
Right. And that's only if a hurricane is coming where there's like a week or a couple of days and you see it coming. But what if there's an earthquake off of the Big Island? You'd have 15 to 30 minutes to prepare. How are you going to do that? And it's not only the food and all of that, but it's your documents, your mortgage payments, your credit cards. All that stuff should be on a thumb drive. You know, so all of your documents be ready to run out of the house. If there's an earthquake and you can't return and your house is destroyed, where's your mortgage? You know, there's a lot of things that you should be prepared for.
That you just never think of unless you need to.
Right.
And hopefully it's not too late.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So a lot of people think, well, I'll just wait until the hurricane comes and we can see it coming. But there are a lot of instances in which it could be an earthquake and then a tsunami, and you didn't have time. Remember the last one was only like
Yes.
2 hours.
Right, right. Now, what about, that should have been a wake-up call for
Yes,
everybody.
yes.
If that wasn't, then I don't know if people will ever wake up.
Right.
But what about people with pets? I mean, what can they do? Because a lot of times you hear they can't even take their pets to the shelter, but they can.
Yeah, and we're working on that. You know, there's not enough shelters for people.
I
You
know.
most of it is public schools, and not
Yes.
all of them are hardened or retrofitted for hurricane strength. But what we're trying to do is to try to get shelters in schools that have hallways or shop places where it's not habitable by humans, and that they could bring their pet, but they need to bring them in a crate, and they have to have their food and everything. And then we work with the Humane Society because they're needing to help with the pets. So we need to separate them. I mean, for health reasons, a lot of people are allergic and all of that. So you're going to be separated from your pet, but hopefully it'll be in the same location. We call it co-location.
Because a lot of times people don't even want to leave their home, even if they might be in
Yes.
danger because they're worried about their pets.
Yes,
Right? Yeah.
and with the tsunami, you can take your pet to someplace else. In
Right.
a hurricane, oh boy, it's going to be hard.
Okay, well, I want to make sure people know where to go to get information. So if you could give the website again, that'd be great.
Sure, it's hawaiiredcross.org, and you can find out how to give, you can find out how to volunteer, and all about the Red Cross and all of the services that we provide that a lot of people don't know about.
So this is the end of the year. People are thinking about where to give their money, and we want to
Yes.
encourage them. Red Cross.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for all your work in the community. Thank you for all that you give up for people and all the ways that you help people in this community. And thank you for taking time on this show, and we'll have you on again.
Thank you, Malia.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
This has been News Behind the News. Aloha.